And I am live. Good morning. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. Happy Transformational Tuesday. I'm glad to be back. If you are catching me, please put hashtag live. And if you're catching the replay, hashtag replay. Happy Tuesday, everyone. Thank you for joining me if you're able to make it. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive right on in because Tuesdays are always the busy days. So I want to talk about how I survived. Hey, Carlos. Thanks for tuning in. I want to talk about how I survived the pandemic, the 2020 pandemic, and why it's benefited me. Good morning. Why it's benefited me today, how I survived. And yes, I'm a millennial. I was born in 1985. For all those guys who've been inboxing me and want to know what my age is, now you know. Okay, so how I survived how I survived the pandemic, how this millennial did. So basically, I was working for a corporate job back in 2020, and I was there for a little over a year, and of course, I was dealing with something that no one should ever have to go through, but it's quite common actually, and workplace harassment. But anyways, it was literally right around the time where things were escalating on the work aspect of it, that I was getting a lot of issues, and I pretty much was pushed out the door. But instead of me being pushed out against my will, I did the ethical thing, going through the proper changes of command, making it known of the issues that I was facing, and everybody just decided, we're just going to ignore this and pretend like it wasn't real. Good morning. And so I was like, you know what? No more. I am not going to do this, and I ended up having to quit, just for my well-being and for my sanity. And sometimes you just have to take that type of action whenever an environment is so toxic like that. When you have haters or peers or your supervisor just kind of coming at you. You can sit there and say, oh, the paycheck is worth it, all this drama and trauma, or you can sit there and say, no, I deserve better, and I'm gonna go ahead and take the action that I need to take. And with that being said, I took action that I needed to take care of myself, preserve myself, and literally, that's pretty much when the pandemic was like right around the corner. And of course, I obviously didn't know that, and so of course, I filed for unemployment, and the state ruled in my favor because the company refused to work with the state. And so it was quite clear that the company had something to hide as far as how they conducted themselves. So basically, by the time that I was approved and qualified, the pandemic happened. And from all over the place, from like left to right, people were losing their jobs. People were being thrown out. Good morning. Thank you for joining me. And so I was just like, wow, like this is crazy. The next thing you know, everybody's filing for unemployment because everybody is, being like let go. Like good workers, people who've been there for years, people being forced to retire, just like all kinds of stuff. People getting scared. Hey, Amber, thanks for tuning in. And so I was just like, oh my goodness, like what's going to happen? And then all of a sudden, like people were getting like eviction notices. Like people, like it was crazy. Happy Tuesday. And I had just gotten into like my apartment. I'd been there for like over a year or so, and it was like my little sweet haven thing. And here I am like looking at this, like the totality of everything, like the bigger picture. And I'm just like, okay, well, I just got qualified, but of course there's still like a waiting period of when those funds will get to you, even though you got qualified. So I'm just like, all right, well. I went ahead and I started like planning because I'm just like, all right, well, I know I'm going to get the money, but here's the thing is I still have an apartment that I need to pay for. I still have food. I still have bills and stuff like that. And so I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do? Because obviously no one's going to hire you now that the pandemic is starting. They're like shutting everything down. So how are you going to have income coming in? And I was like, you know what? I need to do some research. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do some research. And so I got online and I started looking for online opportunities. And then it just kind of grew on me a little bit more, because like 4 years ago, I actually tried starting an online business. So this was still in the back of my head of trying again, and maybe this was a better opportunity. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to do what a lot of people do, which is when they do get unemployment money or they get a stimulus check, they just go blow it off. Like they just go buy things that aren't going to help them, move along. They're literally just going to buy like what they need in front of them, not necessarily necessities or basic needs. Happy Tuesday. Thanks for joining me, Naya. And so anyways, I was just like, all right, I know what I want to do, but these are the risks that I have, the pros that I have. The pros is I still have my apartment, I'm getting employed. And if I stay, I'm going to run into the same issue like everybody else, which is eventually I'm not going to be able to pay for my apartment. I'm going to be evicted, and I'm either going to be homeless or I'm going to have to move back to my parents' house. And at 35, that's something you do when you're in your 20s, not necessarily something you do in your 30s, unless it's like one of those transitional things and you just kind of, you need a place for a little bit. But I was just like, no, I've done that before. I've done that in my 20s where it seemed like it was more appropriate. And I'm just like, okay, I need to think bigger. What are my options? I was like, if I stay at this apartment because, I'm an independent woman, all that. And I had like a little, this pride of hey, Francesca, I had some pride of, being able to sustain myself. And every time something comes my way, I was able to pick myself back up and no problem. Starting over was a thing I did, And so, I was really having a hard time letting go of the apartment. But if I stayed in my apartment through the next 6 months, using the unemployment money and stuff like that, my end goal was that, I would still be able to start a business, but I wouldn't be able to do that if I stayed, in the situation that I was. Eventually I would have to close everything down. And so basically, it was right around that time that where the president had also decided to send out a stimulus check. So there was just one thing after another. Hey, Mikey, good morning. So there was just one thing after another financially that was actually coming in for me and working in my favor. The only thing that I had to sacrifice was the apartment that I absolutely loved and absolutely adored. The place that became my safe haven, from getting away from all the crap and stuff for me to basically start over again. And it was like one more time I had to give up something in order to do something that I really wanted to do. And so that's what I did. So instead of, spending my money or, staying where I was, knowing that down the road, 6 months down the road, I would be facing the same thing on top of being evicted and then having to either lose everything, having to sell everything, figuring out like, hey, Kurt, figuring out where to put all my stuff and like be homeless, or like having to drop everything, go home, live with my parents and tell them that I want to be self-employed. And of course, working from home, being an online marketer is not something that everybody understands. In fact, not everybody recognizes it as like a legitimate way to make income. And so it wouldn't be, hey, Francis, so it wouldn't be something like practical as some people would say, because they're not seeing you get up and clock in and come home and, talk about, hey, Anna, and talk about how work was, that's their worldview of what work is. And of course that I understand that, but that's not where I was wanting to go. So I knew that if, hey, Alexis, so I knew that if I went home, the chances of me being able to start my online business would have been very, very slim. It would have never happened. And so, so basically, an opportunity for me to have my living situation to change. And I explained this to the person that this was my situation, as I want to start a business, but one thing that I have to do is I need to get rid of my apartment to be able to save the money to be able to start. And yes, I have the unemployment money coming, but it's not here. And yes, the stimulus check is coming, but it's not here yet. So the money that I have immediately is the money that I need for my apartment. So what I started doing was I went ahead and talked to property manager. I went ahead and gave him my 60-day notice. And so that way I wasn't dealing with, back fees or, for breaking the contract or anything. I was within my 60 days. Like I started planning everything to the point to where the least amount of money I would lose if I went ahead and got started now versus if I just waited out, like a lot of people were trying to do, and then ended up in the situation of like having to be kicked out of their apartment because they were just they needed to have a place to stay. And that was the thing, is a lot of people didn't have a place to stay. It was really, really heartbreaking. And but just how the doors opened up for me to be able to take advantage of every opportunity I had to be able to go ahead and start the business, even though I had to make the sacrifice. Oh, you're so welcome, Alexis. So even though that sacrifice had to happen, I did it anyway, because overall, I was ready to be free. I did not want to put myself in the situation anymore to where I was working for someone and every single time they just felt threatened by me or they felt the need to do something. So I was like, all right, God, well, I'm going to go ahead and do this. I was completely honest with the person who's now my significant other, now my fiance, and completely scared because I just, I have a right way of doing things and a wrong way of doing things, like black and white sometimes. But it was worth it. And I was like, I knew that if I went back home, if I moved to Raleigh, North Carolina, to live with my parents, then, I would have to, show for the things that I do, and working online just wasn't one of it, because I knew, hey, Des, because I knew that it would take time, it would take progress, and not everybody understands that. And you definitely want to surround yourself with people who are going to understand what you do, who are going to allow you to be you and to move forward in the dreams and the aspirations that you had. And that was certainly the case with my fiance. And so that's basically what happened. So we got things all packed up. We said our goodbyes to the apartment. It was so hard to do, y'all, so hard to do. And got myself into a house and moved in with my fiance. And I set up the upstairs and got prepared for a home-based business. So then that way, when the unemployment came in and when the stimulus check came in, I used that money as a startup to go ahead and start investing in my business. I went to the bank and went ahead and got a banking account, because I went ahead and got my LLC created. And then I started looking for the right online business, which would be, for me, affiliate marketing. The right affiliate program that would teach me the strategies and the knowledge that I need as far as getting started, understanding the terminology, understanding the niche in the industry of what people want when it comes to affiliate marketing and how to do it. And so sure enough, I found what I needed. And of course, I'm communicating all this to my fiance and stuff. And it was just basically like the sky just kept like opening up and blessing me, because I went ahead and took the step, of removing myself from a place that I felt very, very secure, and, leaving my comfort zone, the place that became my safe haven, and putting myself in a completely different environment. Looking at looking at and accepting the fact that it's very, very possible that I might have to move back to Raleigh, North Carolina, but I believe, because I was willing to make the sacrifice, which was to leave my comfort zone of my apartment, that just didn't happen. That I was just completely blessed for the faith that I had versus the lack of faith that I had. And then using the money to actually start the business and being wise with the money, the stimulus check, the unemployment, instead of just, buying big screen TVs and buying meals that, that I have no business eating, or wasting it, or luxury stuff. I looked at investing myself. I got myself enrolled to a community college to get a certificate in human resources generalist. So that way I had the background knowledge as far as when it came to like taxes and payroll and stuff like that. and making sure that I understood the terminology when it came, when it came to the benefits and numbers and taxes and all that stuff like that, QuickBooks, all of that. So that's where I spent my entire summer building myself up. So when September came around and I got to the right program, I was actually able to start and just focus on learning the program versus the startup part, because I spent the summer doing that with the money that came in. So whenever, and I laugh about it because, I hear when people talk about the reasons why they are afraid to start their business or the reasons why they don't do it. I understand that because I was in a similar situation of, basically, fight for what I want or run, flight, the world is crashing around me. So I'm just going to, follow the path that everybody else is following, which is like, be like sheep and just like run and panic. And I'm just like, no, absolutely not. Like, this is what I want to do. And so even though I was scared the entire way of doing it, because every step that I made was something new, it was outside of my comfort zone, I was very much rewarded in being able to get it started up. So that's why I'm here today, because all I can say is that I literally took the money that was given to me by unemployment because of a corporate, of how poorly they treated me. And now, the state ruled in my favor. I took that. I said, you know what? I've served you guys. I've given you guys everything you need. And yes, Mikey, it's so hard to go in the opposite direction. It's so hard. And but I said, you know what? Now I'm gonna take that money and I'm gonna build myself up, because you were so busy trying to tear me down while I was in that company working for you, giving you my all 110%. Now I'm gonna take that money that the state has given me, that because the insurance and all that. I'm going to take that and I'm going to build myself up. And that's exactly what I did. And when that stimulus check came in from the president, that $1,200, that I got, literally my fiance was like, yeah, you keep that money, you build your business, and I'll take care of you. Now everybody doesn't get to have that, but I'm just telling you how God blessed me for simply just stepping out in faith. And I absolutely believe that if you get outside your comfort zone and you do whatever it takes, that you will get rewarded for it. Okay. And so that's exactly what I did. So I was like completely baffled, because I was fully prepared to continue to pay my portion on everything, because that's just how it brought up. That's how my dad raised me. That's how my mom raised me. I'm the only girl out of 4 brothers. I'm the oldest. I'm independent. I'm self-sufficient. I take care of myself. And so for someone to say, I got the back end of things, you focus on your business, it was just like, wow. Okay. And so I'm just telling everybody, that's how I survived 2020 pandemic, is because I literally looked at the chaos around me. Scripture talks about the woman like laughing in the face of chaos. That was me. While everybody else was like running around and falling apart and didn't know what to do, in the midst of chaos, there is light. In the midst of it, there is peace. You just have to be able to find it. You got to be able to, look up. You got to be able to look at your pros and cons and move from there. So, yes, I do have a good man. Yes, I do. And so I just want to encourage you guys that, like, even though like you guys, you talk about how you want to start a business, but you have all these reasons of why, and it keeps you stuck. I hope that my story can kind of give you a little bit of background of where I was, and literally just the what ifs could have happened if I stayed in my apartment, because it was my apartment, because I worked so hard to get there. The what ifs I stayed, because the pandemic was going on. What if I just sat on my unemployment and just kept collecting the money, just used the stimulus check just to collect it, and then went to parties, and then bought TVs, and then bought stuff that I didn't need? Like, what is that going to do for me? How's that going to serve me? It's not. I mean, by the end of the day, you might be the one having to sell it all because you need the extra cash. Like, why do that? So I'm speaking to those who just, who look at getting money as a really quick thing, and they think it's going to immediately, solve the problem. It may for the moment, but really, I would encourage you to take that money on the short end and look at the long term and take it back and invest in yourself and get started on the business that you actually want to get started on, and do it, and say no to everything else, so that way you can go ahead and just get started. So that's how me survived as a millennial, survived the 2020 pandemic, and went ahead and started my business. And I know that it's like few and far. You don't find people my age who take the time to invest in themselves. You always just hear of, older people doing something, being more wiser, all of that. Surround yourself with the right people so you can go ahead and get started, and do the things that you want to do. There's just so much, guys, but I am super proud of myself. And I feel so blessed and so humbled at the same time, because I did that. And now we're into 2021. I'm set up for success. I set myself up for success because in the midst of the pandemic, I said, this is the time to build, not the time to fall apart. This is what I want to do. And I stayed focused. I stayed diligent. I stayed consistent. And here I am. So I just want to leave that with you guys. I hope you guys got value. I hope you are inspired. And I hope that if you're on the fence of, getting your business started, and you have reasons, or better yet, excuses, not better yet, but you have excuses of why you're not getting started, that you'd really take in consideration, is it worth staying where you are and not getting fulfilled the way that you truly desire? All right, my friends, thank you so much for tuning in, and the engagements you guys have left me is just very encouraging, that you guys can just resonate and just totally get it. And I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I look forward to seeing you all next week.